Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Okay, today's topic, modifying a gun or a magazine for magazine fitment. Which should you do? This comes from a question a friend asked, where his gun, when he inserted certain magazines in, it wouldn't allow the gun to cycle. And his question to me was, should he modify the gun or the magazine? And well, my opinion on that is you have to really figure out the problem itself. In his case, the problem was the gun. Let me explain a little bit more. We're going to come over to one of my rifles set up here. And what I did, I have a piece of wire on it. What I'm doing is I'm holding the back end down as far as I can. In turn, what it's doing is pushing the back end of the magazine up in the gun. And what we're going to have happen, it's not going to want to cycle. The bolt itself is catching on either the follower or the feed lips. Most likely the follower. Not wanting to let the gun cycle. That's the problem he had. Well, the thing was, his magazines worked in other guns, so it wasn't the magazine. If you modify the magazine in that situation, you run the risk of it then not working in the other guns. So what you have to do instead, and I'm going to put the camera down, I'm going to show you guys. Alright everyone, you see our magazine catch here. Let me get it in focus. And mine looks pretty odd, and I'll explain why. Mine was actually too low. So when I put a magazine in originally, the gun would not cycle around. It was riding right over the top of the rounds sitting in the magazine. So what I had to do was I had to weld some metal on there. But in the situation I'm talking about here, with the magazine not letting the bolt cycle, what you have to do is you have to file down a little bit of that magazine catch, just a little bit, to allow that magazine to sit a little bit lower in the gun. Now in my case, I welded some more metal on there, and then I had to do the same thing. I had to file down a little bit more metal because I was too high at that point. And when building guns, I run into that. I usually have to modify that kind of stuff, especially when I have to drill my own hole here because I'm not that accurate. This one here, what happened in general was I was too low. So I had to weld some metal on to raise the whole thing up. But that's your two modifications as far as that goes. So as far as the mag catch, it's going to do two things to your gun. It's going to either have the magazine sitting too high, which in that case you have to file down some metal off of it, or it's going to have your gun sitting too low. In that case, you have to weld a little bit of metal back on to fix it properly. All right, let's talk about modified magazines a little bit, because sometimes you run into that too. Again, it depends on what is causing the problem. Is it the magazine or is it the gun? And this one here, of course, you guys saw my video modifying it. Now, I set my guns up usually to run X-Tech because I find that to be a good medium. It usually, most magazines fit if it fits this X-Tech. My X-Tech's out of the way now. I'm going to show this later in a video. These magazines however, these are the Croatian magazines, which I actually like. Now, they're $12.99 for a steel magazine with a bolt hold open follower. Really good deal, in my opinion. But they almost always require a little bit of modification to fit. And what I do is I insert them in all of my guns. Find the common problem between all of them and try to fix that. On this one in particular, this back lip, I had to file down. I actually had to file the bottom of it to make it sit lower altogether. I had to file the whole back portion because it was too long and wasn't allowing it to fit in, to lock in place. Alternatively, this one I had to do nothing to the back locking lug, but I did have to file the feed lips on it. Get that in focus. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but there's bare metal in there. I had to file the feed lips so that it would actuate the last round bolt hole to open on it. And what I saw there is I would insert it in the gun. It would cycle just fine. No failures to feed or failures, anything like that. But I'd get to the last round and the bolt would close on it. Bolt would close after the last round was fired, which meant the magazine was fitting perfectly, fitting just fine in the gun. So the feed lips were a little too thick for the follower to get up high enough to where it was supposed to be. So I just took a Dremel inside and just grinded on the feed lips a little bit. In fact, I probably, how well you can see it, I did do a little bit of grinding on the follower too, right on the side where it touches the feed lips, just to get that extra little couple thousandths of an inch on it. I'd say these are probably more advanced techniques. In fact, this one, if you look at the front, I did the same thing. The feed lips had to be modified for it. The rear locking lug didn't need anything on it. But these Yugoslavian magazines, I'm sorry, no, these Croatian magazines, these are no longer Yugoslavian, they're Croatian. These have nothing to do with Zastava USA either. These are just I think, new production Croatian. I say, yeah, expect a little bit of modifications to these, but again, they're cheap magazines, so it's worth it to me to modify them a little bit. But yeah, if you're having problems like this, feeding issues or magazine fitment issues, it's definitely good to test the magazines in multiple guns. Find the common outlier, whether it be the magazine or just one certain gun. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope I helped out. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.